Welcome, 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 everyone. Welcome to Tish Talks Tech. And today, it's a rumble in the jungle. It's a nice, calm walk. Can you believe it? We have members of the VM workshop, world famous, amazing, lovely educators with the most. I can't believe it. And you know what? Listen, I am pleased as punch to welcome you all. Bill Bitner, thank you. Olivia Ecock, thank you. I certainly do appreciate you all coming. Look, we don't have a lot of time. I am not going to sit here and just blow bubbles and spin taffy, but I am so happy that you all are here and sharing with us the joys of the VM workshop and all that you do. So thanks for coming and sharing your Sunday with us.
Our pleasure.
Thank you so much for having us.
I appreciate you so much. Now, listen, for those of us, because a lot of the folks in the audience are new to Z, okay? And so a lot of folks that come through only know about certain things. Lots of mainframe, maybe just a little bit of mainframe, maybe only heard of a VM within the distributed environment. Can you give us like a very short one sentence description? And I want to start with Olivia. I know, of what you feel, and let's just do like, what's VM, and what does it mean to you?
Great question. VM to me as a student, I think it means new opportunities, new endeavors. It is not something that is taught in a college curriculum that at least I'm attending. So for me, it's brand new and it's really fun because I get to kind of take the lead on it and teach myself, get some help from colleagues, and it's really fun and new and just something different.
Awesome. And I'm kind of doing this a little bit backwards instead of introductions because I really need to hear this like straight from the hip, like straight off the top of your head. Bill, same question.
So ZVM is a hypervisor / operating system that allows you to do so much on IBM Z. So it takes one mainframe and makes it look like hundreds or thousands of them.
Ooh, it's like the superheroes are coming to unite. I absolutely love that. Absolutely love that. I want to, now that we have that kind of to level set for us, let's start with our introductions. And oh, it looks like we have another player. Hi, Len.
I'm in.
I see your lips moving, but I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I
hear
can.
you now. How are you?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I'm doing okay. Been spending a little too much time in the sun today, but I'm getting some great weather here. The last few days we had a lot of rain last week, so we're kind of making up for it this week.
Totally cool. So happy to have you. Welcome to the show. We are live. We were just about to get through with introductions, but we haven't. Before we start with that, we wanted to come straight from the hip and ask, what does ZVM mean to you? What's your definition?
To me, are you asking me or bit?
Olivia and I already gave our answers, Len, so it's your turn.
Okay, well, for me, I've devoted much of my life, I guess, to the VM product, not just 𝗧𝗵𝗵, but I think 𝗧𝗵𝗵 itself, I think, sort of gave VM a new breath of life when the System Z came along. So, I worked on VMSP, VMHPO, VM, going back over the decades, actually. And I think when IBM decided 𝗧VM, it kind of pumped a new life into the VM product itself. So yeah, I guess that's probably what it meant. What it meant most to me.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I was just saying, it's almost as if the superheroes have come to town, when you hear about it. And it's really intriguing to introduce this topic to the folks that are new to Z and folks that are watching, because now everyone's going to be like, wait a minute, I had no idea that one can even do such a thing with z/OS, or I had no idea that there was this capability, right? Because some people just don't know. So again, I'm just pleased as punch that you all took the time to be able to come through and tell us all about it and tell us about the grand work that you all are doing. So without further ado, I'd love to get some introductions, and let's start with Olivia.
So my name is Olivia. I got introduced to the VM workshop actually when I was very little. I remember every year my father attending these workshops, and he'd come home and he'd give me like little gifts from all the vendors' tables, like T-shirts, little penguins, USBs. So I always knew he was going to this workshop, but I never knew what it was. I was a little girl. And eventually I moved on to college, and I attend West Virginia University. And I stumbled into computer science. I told myself I wouldn't major in computer science, but I ended up there anyway. And last year, my father, he approached me when it was registration time. And he was like, would you like to come to the VM workshop with me? And if I'm being honest, I was kind of hesitant at first. I was like, I don't know, like my experience is like little to none. Like, I don't think I'll have fun. But I eventually agreed. And then not only did I agree, but then I somehow agreed to also present. And I had no idea what I was going to present. I was like, I can't present anything. Like, no one's going to show up. I don't know anything. I'm not going to be teaching anyone anything. And I eventually decided to major topic in my major of like an accidental computer science major, because that's what kind of happened. I majored in physics originally, and then I moved on to computer science. So I kind of just told my story. And that was my first like major public speaking engagement. And after that, I got in touch with some of the committee members at the VM workshop, and I kind of gave my 2 cents in a way, because I was like, hey, like as a student who knows nothing about VM, it was a little difficult to, kind of plan out my day of like, what can I easily understand? What are some student-friendly options for me? Luckily, I had my father with me. So I was like, hey, Dad, like what would I be able to go to and understand? So I think this year we're making more of an effort to involve students and make plans to have a little more student-friendlier presentations so they have some place to be. And that's it.
That's a lot, Olivia. That's freaking amazing. It's huge.
Thank you.
Do you know the impact? Now, okay, look, I'm just, like I said, I'm not going to spend sugar, but I'm going to spend sugar here and make a big ball of rainbow colored spun sugar. Listen, that's amazing. The amount of students, I can just imagine what it's going to look like in Virginia in June, because it's going to be amazing to see all of those people learning, growing, taking it all in. I mean, and then they see you and they're going to be like, oh yeah, this is where we're supposed to be. We're supposed to learn all this stuff, get really good education, right? Apply our skills and get some great jobs and contribute to the community. And then we're going to come back next year and then we're going to do the same thing, right?
That's the goal.
So, go ahead.
No, that's just the whole goal. I mean, we want to involve more students, the younger generation. We want to, give them jobs and teach them things like COBOL that really aren't taught in our curriculum anymore. There's a whole bunch of jobs available. Like, it's crazy. Like, I'm excited for it once I graduate because it's like this little almost niche market that's not really talked about and unfortunately not very popular. But if I could somehow change that a little bit to just get some students involved and be like, hey, you don't just have to do one thing. Like, there's so many other options. Then I'd be happy.
Well, get ready to be ecstatic because you're about to make a huge impact, Olivia. I love it. Thank you so much for your expressions.
Thank you.
Which one of you gents would like to go next?
Len would.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Okay, so I started working on VM pretty much by accident. And it was after I came out of the service in '73. I was actually working on what then was the most popular system in its day was OS. The HASP system was part of it, which had MVT, MFT. So for some of the people out there in the audience, they probably remember those days. I worked for a guy at IBM called 𝗵𝗵 𝗪𝗏, who became pretty famous over the years. And after about 3 or 4 months working on that, I was doing a machine shop one night in the 706 building in Poughkeepsie. And there was another systems programmer on the computer next to me, and he was working on VM. And we were going to go get a cup of coffee. This was like 1 o'clock in the morning. Get a cup of coffee out of one of the vending machines, and I asked him what he was working on, and his name is Vince Pisco, and he's still around. He's down in the Tampa area, and we still stay in touch after all these years. He worked for IBM until he retired, but he started sketching out on green bar paper, for those of you that remember what green bar paper was, what VM was all about. And I went in the next day and I told 𝗵𝗵 that, hey, look, I got to switch over to this other group. And I started working on VM back in that time frame. It was right after the VM announcement, the first VM announcement. And over the years, I had a chance to work with the Future Systems group in Poughkeepsie as a liaison between that group and the machine room, what we used to call the machine room in 706. And these were the folks that came up with laser printing. They also were working on something called the personal computer. And what gave them the idea for the personal computer, by the way, is the VM system, because they were doing all their development work on VM. And they thought, if we could come up with a way to do, instead of mini disk and some of the other things that VM offers, what if we had something like that right on our desk? Instead of a virtual printer that printed stuff down at the machine room, we had to go down and get it. But there was a printer right next to the personal computer, and we could do everything right there. So that really got me started. After that, I ended up going to the field as an SE and then a marketing rep, became an area systems center specialist for VM. So I covered like 6 states. And then around the HPO days, I came back and started working on VM for the lab again as a marketing. I did global marketing support. So over the years, I've been pretty much, doing a little bit of everything and enjoying it.
I can tell.
And enjoying it.
Yes, that takes
I can't
a
believe
lot of dedication.
And I can't believe that Bit let me go before him, because he usually is the one on the when we do conference calls, he's usually, okay, Len, let's move on now.
No, absolutely. You take your time, because this is wonderful.
It's going, oh no, not.
No, that's the career is just, I mean, from 73 to now, and then all of the development, the types of things, the types of technology that you must have seen and what you must have touched. If I could just be a fly on the wall, I would pay good money just to,
I can tell you stories. I was working at Montgomery Wards, if you can remember Montgomery Wards, and they one of the things that the FS group came up with, the Future Systems group, was the mass storage unit. And it was all data cells, hundreds of them, that would load into this mass storage system, had a lot of arms, move these things around. And it was like a honeycomb. So it would pluck these cells out, plug them in somewhere else, and read data off. So Montgomery Ward had all their account information on this. And they happened to be the third installation of its type in the country. And so IBM sent a photography group in, to do an article for in those days, the IBM News, about the mass storage unit going into Montgomery Wards. So they showed up, and it was a box that was completely closed all over it. So they couldn't see inside. They couldn't see the honeycomb. They couldn't see the cells, the data cells. They couldn't see anything moving around. So they convinced the group that we should open the doors so they could take pictures of everything going on inside the mass storage. Well, everything inside the mass storage, a lot of it was controlled by strobe lights, by lights. And once they started taking pictures, once they started taking pictures of the inside of the mass storage unit, this thing was literally throwing cells out of the box onto the floor in the machine room. And you can't, it was like a nightmare just trying to fake this box out, having it think that the cells were still back in there, because we could get them back in, but the box already thought they were there. So once we brought one in, so it was a nightmare. But the things over the years that when you're working with customers, you deal with day to day, just right. It was fun stuff. Now, when you look back, it's kind of fun stuff. Okay, I'm done.
But at the time, I'm sure you probably wish that you had a sign that said, "Please, no flash photography." In that
right.
in that instance.
Yeah, the account team was we were staring at each other, going, "We just can't believe it." It was like a nightmare.
For sure. Wow, that's awesome. That is awesome. Thank you for that. I'll be thinking about that for probably the rest of the week, and comparing other stories. Like, well, did you hear Len's story though? That is a good story. All right, thanks so much. What about you, Bill?
So my stories probably aren't as colorful, but I started with IBM in 1985. I didn't move around quite as much as Len. So I've been in Endicott the whole time. I ended up retiring in March of 22. But I was part of the VM development team, different products over the years. The first 25 years or so of that, I was in VM performance evaluation. So making sure that we meet the criteria in terms of response time and user supported and things of that nature. Working with the developers, working with the hardware designers, to ensure that everything meets the criteria before things go out the door. And then at some point, they needed somebody to kind of be a focal point for the customers in the field. And so I took this new role, which some people refer to it as inside out, which I never really enjoyed that name, but the idea that you go outside and then bring the outside in and inside out. The way I typically described it, though, was I represented the product to the rest of the world, and then the rest of the world, I represented them to the product. So I would sit in design meetings and say, well, from a customer viewpoint, this is what would be best. With that, I spent a lot of time doing conferences like the VM Workshop and Share and so forth, helping customers architect solutions, and occasionally, like Len described, working with those problems. Right. So some people have heard me talk in the past about, the Heisenberg quote about an expert, somebody that knows the worst thing that can happen and how to avoid it. Sometimes we know the worst things that can happen because we open the doors and start taking pictures, right? We live through those bad things and learn how to address them. And so that's kind of my story. There's a lot more to it in terms of just embracing the community, which, Len talks about. Olivia is starting to see that by sharing both the good and the bad, we get better, right? We learn from each other's mistakes. I think that's one of the things that kind of sets this community apart a little bit, is that we're not afraid to talk about what we did wrong, partly so we don't want anybody else to make the same mistakes. So that's kind of my story. Enjoying retirement, but I'm still involved with the VM workshop, which keeps me in touch with so many of the people that I love and the products I love.
That's awesome. That's awesome. You know, I remember just a few days ago, was it a couple of weeks ago, we spoke over with Dr. Say, and you had spoke at his class, which, you know, we really appreciate you for that. And again, more education, more outreach. And you were like, hey, this is what's going on within the community. Did you guys even know about the VM workshop? It's so amazing to me how the community just reaches out, and we really, it's almost like we're recycling this goodness, right? And everyone just kind of comes through and says, hey, there's this thing that we're supporting, and there's other stuff, right? For lack of better words, there's other stuff that we use that is supported, and you need to learn it. What do we do, first of all, to make sure that folks know more about the VM, 𝗧𝗵𝗵, the other products that are supported? How do we get folks to recognize and see that it's a jungle out here, but it's such a pretty place to be? How do we do that?
I think we need to keep encouraging people to ask the questions about, you know, how does that work? And we need to do things like this, get out and get the word out. So we appreciate you giving us the time to share the message with this. It's tough these days because, no offense to the marketing people out there, but from a marketing perspective, they want to sell the image of a solution. That often doesn't include covering all the parts underneath, right? You seldom see a car commercial that highlights the technology in the suspension. But if you buy a car with bad suspension, you know it, right?
You can feel it, right?
Infrastructure, you won't see a marketing thing that goes out about some large customer that just, did some tremendous thing. You're not going to see 𝗧𝗵𝗵 listed there. You often won't see some of the other bigger products even listed there, but it's going on there, right? And I think we just need to keep talking about it and letting people know about it. Like Olivia said, it's a shame that more universities aren't talking about it, but that's partly why we're supporting different groups that are doing that work. Professor Say and others that are doing that work. We really appreciate that.
Love that. And Len, what say you?
Yeah, I agree with what Bit's saying. I've had to like Bill. I've met with a lot of different customers out there over the years, and I think there are times when they're selling what's popular or what the company is asking them to sell, and they've got to do it. I mean, they have quotas. I've been with account teams where even SEs working with software, they're told, get out there and push this software, or get out there and push this hardware. And so they have a quota. They've got a goal that is being set by people above them. But when you get into the real world, and I've seen this happen many times, where all of a sudden you've got an account that's switching over from mainframes and maybe VM or 𝗧VM or ZOS to racks, and they're working with like a warehouse location where they're just installing not only their racks but other companies' racks. And next thing you know, especially in the situation I ran into was in the San Francisco area, they ran out of power. They were waiting months to get power installed to handle all the racks that were going in, and I was in there telling them, hey, look, you can replace probably half the racks in this building with a couple of mainframes. And when they started looking into it, they realized that here, all this time they've been working this strategy because that's what was being sold to them, like Bit mentioned about, whether you've got a car with the right technology in it, but you end up with maybe down the road where you realize, wow, how did we ever end up here? We got ourselves into a situation now that's going to be difficult to back out of, or we wait 3 or 4 months where we can upgrade or install more capacity, because it's not only that location. I mean, it might be their own machine room where they just can't get power to it for all the racks that are coming in, where you can install like a mainframe and replace literally dozens or even maybe 100 or more smaller processors. So I saw a lot of that, I think, especially when I was in the field working as on an account team, where you just shook your head and you wondered, like, oh my God, what are we doing? This is not the right way to go. And I think we see that a lot with the VM story. And it's difficult. Like one of the things that we ran into this week, we were on a call with one of the staff at the university, and we're trying to get students in for the June workshop, but it's June. They're on their way home. Finals are over, and we do the workshop every year in the summer, and every year we run into the same challenge. How do we get folks like Olivia there and have she we've been doing the workshop maybe 13 years. I think this is the 13th or 14th year. And I've been with it from the beginning, this particular version of it. And she's been like a gift. I mean, really, she's a gift. We haven't had anyone like this come along where she's not only a student, but she's willing to get really involved.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you,
It makes a difference.
You bet.
It definitely makes a difference. Olivia, what does it take to get the students in there?
So honestly, from my perspective, because I actually have been, talking to other computer science majors, and I was like, hey, you should come to this. Like, this is a great opportunity. All the vendors there, I mean, the networking you do and what you learn, you could go to labs. I mean, there's endless amount of opportunities at this workshop. And the biggest issue was really just the students, we just don't know. I went in knowing absolutely nothing. But again, luckily I had my father who I could ask questions to. So that's why we're trying to have someone like they can approach me. All the students can be like, hey, what's this? And hopefully I can know the answer for them, or I can refer them to someone who I know knows the answer. But I think that just kind of giving like an explanation and like a dumbed down version to kind of be like, here's what it is, come. Because I think it's just more of a fear factor of just like, what is it? We don't know about it. And also the traveling, that's an issue too, because like Len said, it is in June. So the best option is to get students who are doing summer classes. Those seem to be like the most involved students, because I took many summer classes, and in that small group, you really see like the ones who are hardworking and who want to get ahead and learn as much as possible. But I really think that starting at the school, at the curriculum, is the best possible route to go about.
That's awesome. That's awesome. It looks like we have some chat going on. And let's see. Karen Kilroy is saying hi. And we're going to say hi back. And it looks like we have Mike Riggs here saying the VM workshop community has been
Mike's a ringer.
Sorry?
Mike's a ringer. Mike's a ringer. He's one of us. He's one of us.
He's the crew. Been an asset to me as a mainframe user. Thanks, Bill and Lynn. Those CCW translations were right on time. That's quite nice. It's quite nice.
Yeah, so Mike's actually our chairman for this year's events.
Oh, cool.
So Mike's local to the Richmond area, or semi-local. So that always helps when you have somebody close by to where we're doing it. And with that, he's also been in contact with the staff at VCU, Virginia Commonwealth University.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we'll have a better chance this year of getting more students there. A lot depends on when we've held events where they teach Z, or they at least have a Z machine there. That goes a long way towards getting folks there, students there. And then in conjunction with the stuff Olivia is doing, we have some pretty good hopes there.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Plus,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to mention, I know one of the things you wanted to talk about today was the Fallen Knight Award, which is aimed to.
He cut out. Are you all hearing him?
I no longer hear him, but I will read his mind. Len was going to say that the Fallen Knight Award is something that we just started this year. It will be an award that's given out to a student attendee. It's meant to commemorate Fallen Knight. So let me back up a little bit. Welcome back, Len.
Welcome back.
I was just getting a little slug of Diet Coke.
You can drink on there.
Yeah.
So I was trying to fill in while you were going, Len. Did you want to pick up, or do you want me to keep going?
No, you're the guy, man. If it hadn't been for you, we wouldn't be talking about it.
So we'll back up a little bit. There's actually something called the Companions or the Order of the Knights of VM. So this was something that was started back in 1978. And it's sort of a VM community thing. People were selected based on their contribution to the VM community. So there were a number that were first selected in 1978. And then after that, I think starting in 82, every 5 years, in conjunction with the anniversary of the announcement of VM 370, we name a new class of the Knights of VM. And so it's kind of an honor to be selected by that. It comprises, customers, IBMers, vendors, the whole gamut of folks there. Since we've been doing this since 1978, unfortunately, some of our knights have passed away. Last year in August, Sir Dave the Generous, Dave Jones, passed away. There's a moniker that goes with every knight. Dave's was Sir Dave the Generous, which was very fitting. And so this year's award is tied in conjunction to Dave. So probably should say a few words about Dave for those that don't know him.
Yeah, please do, because that's not the first time that he's been mentioned on the show. Lionel Dyke has talked about him. A bunch of folks have. Now, I'm trying to get it in my head, but not the first time. So please let us know who was he?
Yeah, so Dave was knighted back in 2002. He worked for a number of customers over the years, and then had been doing consulting in the past decade or so. Dave was trained as a geophysicist, and back in the I guess late 70s, early 80s, as machines were getting fast enough to help deal with seismographic analysis, he started doing that. I think he was with Chevron at the time. He taught himself Fortran, since that was the language of choice for this kind of work. And then stumbled along the way on VMSP, an earlier version of VM, fell in love with that, and fell in love with the community. Sir Dave the Generous, because he would help so many different people. One of the things that's been interesting to me is with his passing, I knew a lot of what he had done from a generosity perspective in terms of helping people, but I'm learning that was just the tip of the iceberg. that all these people are popping up that I didn't expect. I think when Jack Ware was on the show here, he mentioned that. I'm like, well, I didn't know that they knew each other, and yeah, they did. And Dave helped him out. I know I talked to somebody else fairly recently that said, "Oh yeah, Dave gave me access to a system so I could do some analysis or do some coding." And it was just that kind of nature in Dave, and things weren't beneath him. I know when the VM workshop, like a lot of groups, had to deal with the pandemic, you know, in March of 2020, when that all started coming down, we're like, well, we have an event in June. What do we do? So we shifted to do a virtual event. One of the things that was important to us was that the aspect of networking, because that's really something people really wanted or were craving at that point in time. And so like, okay, we're going to do it, and we're going to leave the chats completely open. So if you recall, a lot of the other conferences at that time were like, yeah, no, we can't do that. Or if you have chat, it's only going to go to the presenters. Well, we left it wide open, which in many ways was great. But one of the things we also wanted to do with that was for each presentation, there would be key nuggets of information that were dropped in the chat. And so I remember a committee meeting where we talked about, all right, we need somebody to volunteer to go through and reread all the chats and pull out the nuggets. And in a volunteer group, often you get something like that. You're like, okay, what can I do to sweeten the deal or to get people to do that? And so I'm kind of thinking through that, but I didn't need to. Dave goes, oh, I'll do that. And he was happy to do something as mundane and kind of dredge work as going through that and pulling out all these little nuggets, because he knew those little nuggets were going to help people. And that's something that he could do. And if it was something he could do and it was going to help, he was going to do it. So Dave, yeah, when I heard of his passing, and some people have heard me say this, it's sort of like in some of those Star Wars movies where they say there's a disturbance in the Force. And that's kind of like what it felt with losing Dave. So with that, you know, we've started this Fallen Knight Award. And so we're going to honor a student that attends the workshop that exhibits those characteristics of Dave, of being friendly and open and helpful and generous. And so we're excited about that. We're very excited too about the community. So there'll be along with acknowledging the student, they'll get a little bit of support financially. And the community has been contributing to that. And we just can't thank the folks enough for that, what they stepped up for. So we're excited about that.
Well, that is, first of all, commemorating Dave is awesome. And I think that, you know, when we first talked about you all coming through, I said, we really have to have a few words spoken so that people can really understand all of Sir Dave the Generous's contributions, because folks were just, I have heard, like, even at the last share, people were really talking about this individual and what he did for them, and like pivotal moments, right? And how people are just the things that they had learned, or the resources that they were able to gather so that they can learn other things. And again, that goes back to the recycling of the good within our community. And you all making this award, whoever that very, very fortunate person is going to be, that's just amazing. And when you all are down in the RVA area, I wish that I could come and just, I'll be busy, I'll be on travel that week, but I wish that I could come and see the faces as that award is being handed out, because it's just going to be amazing. And folks are, I hope that they take all of that in. I really, really do. And thank you for sharing those words about Sir Dave the Generous Jones. That's wonderful. That's
You're
wonderful.
welcome. And somebody in chat reminded me, Dave was also acknowledged as an IBM champion just recently too, before he passed. So that's another, that was great to see as more people were recognizing, Dave's contribution, because he'd like to fly under the radar if he could, but I know that was a big thing for him.
That's awesome. That is awesome. Wow. So let's see. So you all are going to be down in the RVA area doing this, RVA, Richmond, Virginia, doing this event. I called it the main event when I advertised the session because I really feel like it's going to be like the main event. Folks are really talking about going down and learning something new, or strutting their stuff and giving a talk. I love that part. I think that's my favorite part when it comes down to conferences and get-togethers, if you will. What can people expect? And anyone can answer. What can folks expect from the VM workshop down in RVA?
Well, I can jump in on this one, I think, a little bit.
Sure.
First of all, the workshop is the largest event of its type globally. So if there are folks out there looking for education on VM and VSC and Linux, you can't go anywhere globally and find an event that's larger and also offers all the education up for the price. Because we're a nonprofit. Myself, Mike Briggs, especially Olivia, none of us are paid. If anything, we work on a lot of this, and it's at our own expense. And when we started this some years ago, that was the reason behind it. I was working with Velocity Software at the time, and Barton Robinson, who's the founder of Velocity and CFO, CEO, we were sitting at a P.F. Chang's one night, and this is part of the history that's out on the website. And Barton was complaining about the fact that education was so expensive, that especially like large corporate sponsored events, they hold them at very expensive venues like Boston, LA, Miami, wherever. The venue is expensive, and then registration is expensive. It could cost $1,500 or more for a few days worth of education. And the sponsors pay a lot. So if you want a booth at the event, you're paying $3,000, $4,000. And I was involved in all that for Velocity Software as the marketing person. And we were sitting there one night talking about it, and Barton said, why don't we do something like the old VM workshop? Because we were doing VM workshops back in the 80s, and I was keynote speaker at least two of them. And I attended a bunch of them on behalf of IBM, on IBM's behalf. But anyway, we started looking at this and thinking there's got to be a way we can approach back. And that's how it all started. We pulled a handful of people together that was working for IBM at the time, and a handful of others. And we just started working on something that really, the first year we had like 55 or 60 attendees. And since then, we've had over 150. And the first year, we had coffee in the morning, and everybody took care of end up at a fast food and grab some they get all their meals. So we're literally lucky to break even on the attendee fee, which is early bird $100 per person. I'll throw that in. But yeah, they get like a shirt, a polo shirt, all their meals, and plus the education. And on top of all of that, because I had this come up recently with one of the sponsors, they're there to communicate with folks. It's not necessarily from a sponsor standpoint. I know if they get a lead and they could sell something, that's great. But what I try to tell them is you're there to communicate with these potential customers or existing customers. And the fact that you're there talking with existing customers is just as important. Because you could find out from them that, hey, I'm having a problem and I've been trying to get it fixed and I'm not getting anywhere. Or, hey, I'd like to see something like this in the next release. So there's just all that communication that goes on, and it's done for literally almost nothing compared to what one of the other venues might offer up. And they're getting, in some cases, the same presentations. So instead of going off and spending $3,000 for 4 days worth of education in San Francisco, they're coming to Richmond. And, for maybe a few $100s, getting almost the same education or better. For one thing, they're going to have more communication between because this group is a group, like you probably have noticed, that doesn't mind having a chat, having a conversation. This is where Bit normally jumps in and goes, all right, Len, okay, let's move on now.
No,
Right.
no, you take your time. You take your time. I love it. I love it. And Mark Smith wanted to caveat and say, but wait, there's more. A shirt similar to what Bill Bitner is wearing included.
I believe Olivia is modeling one as well.
That's true.
I love it.
Now you know why Mark Smith's our communications director.
That's perfection. And Len, I love what you said about the whole, this is the time that we can get together, speak face to face with folks, learn what pain points are, figure out some solutions, and be able to help each other, because that's what we're doing really at the end of the day, because we got to continue to let the world go around, right? And when you're able to get together, that just, it's not only is it congenial, it's just right. And it just feels good. And people like to do business with people that they like, right? And so I love that. I love that you all are providing a nice space for that, because people love to be face to face. This is wonderful, y'all. This is really, really good. And I cannot wait to hear all of the sugar spun feedback in the rainbow colors and all of the metallic glitter that's going to come down. I'm going to hear in my DM that says, Laticia, did you hear about how amazing the VM workshop, that main event, was amazing in June? And all of the students came down. They came down from DC. All those folks that are up in DC and in Baltimore, they drove down a little bit. All those folks came out. Everyone in RVA, which is a huge tech corridor right now, RVA is very hot in tech, came out. It's going to be a massive success, you guys. Can't you feel it?
We're very excited. There's a lot going on, as Len said. There's 17 time slots, your choice of 65 sessions altogether. Richard Lewis will be there doing his hands-on labs again. So if you want to install Linux on a Z box and or install 𝗧𝗵𝗻, you can do that there with somebody that really knows what he's doing to help you along. So wow. It's just great. For students, we charge even less than $100. We get where you're at. The early bird special does end at the end of April, so don't hesitate. But we're excited about it. Also, like Len said, the sponsors, it's a very different experience. And in most conferences, the sponsor or trade show is like some other floor somewhere.
Yeah.
And ours is just mixed in right where the sessions are and stuff. So you're with them all the time.
Right.
And you just get to know them as more, rather than, excuse me, can I scan your badge? Right. It's I think a different experience. And with that, there's a lot of folks that attend the workshop all on their own dime. They think this education is that valuable for their career that for whatever reason they have an employer who's not smart enough to know that it's of value and pay for it. Those people have gone on their own. So
yeah. Well, any any last final words? Any words of wisdom? And I'll start with Len. Let's start with Len.
My words of wisdom, huh? Wow, this is really
Yeah.
this is like, I can see Bit. You went to Len for words of wisdom. This is really going to be good. No, I think, I guess for me, me personally, I always took that other turn. You know, like when everybody was heading for OS back in the OS 360 HASP, MVT, MFT days, I learned all that. And as a systems programmer at the time, I learned how to write code and do all that good stuff. But sitting there on a computer one night with a buddy, became a buddy, he showed me some VM stuff. Everybody in that building was working on OS, MVT, MFT. And here was 5 or 6 people working on VM. And over a cup of coffee, I made a decision to go that route. 4 or 5 years later, I made a decision to leave development and go to the field to do more. Because I walked into an office in Kansas City and sat with an SE manager, and I just came fresh out of the lab. I was wearing a plaid sport jacket, a turtleneck, and jeans, and everybody was in IBM blue suits, white shirts, ties. And I walked in there, and later on I had a buddy that I worked with, Ken Corsini, and he said he thought I just fell off a turnip truck. That was the reaction in the office. And I walked in and I sat with this SEM, and he says, well, what's your interest? And I said, VM. And he says, well, we don't have any VM customers here in Kansas City. And I said, that's why I'm here. I'm here to change that. And within probably 5 years, we had maybe a dozen VM customers or more in the Kansas City area, because I was just working with them. As the new systems came along, I'd tell them a little bit more about VM, and next thing you know, we're selling VM in the shop. And it was just, I was the only person in the branch doing that. And I think if I had anything to mention, it's kind of like Olivia. You know, she's doing something different. You know, she's following what her heart and instincts tell her. You know, this is kind of like a little different, but it's where I really need to be going. And for whatever reason in her heart and in her mind, this is what's driving her. And I think over the years, when there were probably people that were going, what are you thinking? And Bit has been around me a lot of years. He knows some of the crazy stuff. And I think if I had any advice, that's the thing to do, is like, you know, don't be afraid to try something different, especially down in your heart and your mind. You're thinking, boy, this is really something interesting, and this is where I really ought to be going. And Olivia is a perfect example. I mean, really, just look at what she's doing. Hanging out with a bunch of old guys like us, and she's the spark.
I love that. I love that. Just go out there and do it. This is what I came here for. I came to change that.
Yep.
Can we please put that on a shirt? I came to change that. That's if y'all aren't viewing audience, if you all are not motivated by that piece right there, go out, learn something new. What are you here for? This isn't what we do. I came to change that. Len said that. So thank you for your expressions. I love that, Len. Thank you so much. And who would like to go next with final words? Olivia, maybe?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think this is kind of corny, but it's a lot of fun. Like, I'm actually saying that, I mean that from the heart. Like, it's fun. Everyone there, they're so nice, and you get into conversations with literally anybody. All of the vendors there are great too. I mean, you learn so much that it's a really nice, comfortable place. And even for like a first-time speaker like me, people showed up, they asked questions, they supported me, and like they didn't have to at all. Like they could have went to a different session that was more technical, because I was not doing a technical session. So I think that it's just a great community. And it's also just a lot of fun. And it's a few days, it's like 2 days, and it's a great price for what you're getting. And it's a lot of fun.
Olivia, I love I love what you're saying. I absolutely love what you're saying. And I love the value that you bring to the VM workshop, to your school, and to the community, because we love to see students thriving and just showing what they can do. You are just strutting your stuff, and I love it. And you know what? Ah, please keep in touch. I want to hear all about all of the amazing things that you are doing. Not what you're gonna do, but what you are doing. And you are speaking. Are you presenting in June?
So this year I'm not presenting, but I am on a panel.
Okay.
So I'll be up there, but I'll just be answering some questions.
Are they taking pictures?
I'm sure. I'm sure there'll be some pictures.
Please share. I cannot wait to hear about this grandness, because the students need to know what you were doing, and that accidental computer science major, that wasn't by accident. You're just good at everything, and I absolutely love it, and I just, again, I cannot wait to see more and hear more from you. So thanks for your contribution.
Thank you.
Yeah. And Bill, your final words?
So I guess two quick things. One, if people want to get a better feel for what the VM workshop's about, there is a YouTube channel where some of our sessions are out there, including Olivia's. So if you want to check that out, I encourage you to do that. We don't record all of them. We probably will try to record the panel sessions this time. We have, I'm excited about this. We have one that's folks that are relatively new to the mainframe. And then we have one that we've done traditionally that's folks that aren't so new. But again, sharing that story. The other thing I would share is a quote that an IBMer gave us a couple years ago. So Monty Bauman, who a lot of you know, sent something out to his user group that we ended up stealing. But he described the VM workshop as, it's simply a bunch of smart people gathered together who enjoy making each other smarter.
I love that.
And so, and having fun along the way. We definitely tried to do that. I'm not sure what we have in store this year. Last year we had some VM Pictionary. We've had some VM Bingo. So you never know. You got to show up to find out.
Got to show. Hey, you got to be there to get there and to do that. I love it. Thank you so much, Bill. And again, for what you all are doing. And, you know, people just don't know. And the moment that they find out, right? The moment that they find out about all of these wonderful things that make up the mainframe ecosystem and all of the wonderful things that you can do, the moment that you find out, like what Len was saying, hey, I found out that this is something that I could do, you know, it's amazing. It's amazing. And people have made decades long careers out of mainframe, Linux, VM, all sorts of stuff. And we absolutely love that you all are sharing this knowledge in June. We absolutely love it. I thank you so much for coming on and sharing this wisdom. It's going to be June 22nd down in RVA. It's June 22nd through 24.
June 20th to the 22nd, I think.
The 20th through the 22nd.
Yeah, Thursday through Saturday morning.
So amazing. Where at?
In Richmond, Virginia, at the Virginia Commonwealth University.
VCU. Richmond. RVA area. Be there or be square, y'all. I'll go ahead and close out. I really appreciate your time. You all listen. If you're in the RVA area, Mike King, if you can hear me, please let everybody know that the VM workshop is going to be in the building. So can you please let your tech connections in RVA know that the VM workshop is going to be down at VCU in June. And don't worry, I'll reach out to you on LinkedIn so we can make sure that you remember. But yeah, all of that is going to happen. And VM Workshop members, Olivia, Len, Bill, thank you so much for coming and sharing your wisdom with us. I'd like to thank everybody. And who is this? Oh, Mike, you have something? What is this?
We wanted to thank you for giving us the time.
You're so welcome. It's my pleasure. And you know, anytime that you all want to come on, please, if you have anything to share, please do send those folks my way. I'd like to thank my sponsor today, File Baby. You know, you do need to love yourself and love each other. Thank you so much. I appreciate everybody. You all have a great day. Bye-bye.
Everyone, thank you.